Okay, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Bava Basra Daf Kuf Samach Beis Amud Aleph. Unfortunately, for those who learn Rishonim, this would take a very long time. But in Daf Yomi, it's a short blot, I should say. Just two short questions and answers, and then we are going to wrap up for tonight. I did want to do some extra today, but I literally overslept by like an hour this morning, so that didn't happen. So here we go. We're 4 lines from the bottom of Kuf Samach Aleph Amud Beis. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Amachkin Kulan, in all cases of erasing, Tzarech Sheyichtov, you need to write the words V'dein Ki Yumehon, that this is actually all good. Rishonim here are done whether the word V'dein and this is necessary, or is it just Ki Yumehon? This is a discussion in the Rishonim, not for now. You can see Rashi and Tosfos al Atar. And not only that, on the last line of the shtar, says the Gemara, you need to basically write a summative line of what the shtar says. So let's say I'm writing a shtar for us to buy a house together, and there's myriad details, lots of caveats, lots of clauses, lots of details. The end line will say, Lamaisa, Phil is going to buy a house from Gerald, which I'm sure would make Gerald very happy, but I'm not moving. I do get phone calls about my house every other week, though. This is the time. But where am I going to go, and how much are they going to pay me? Gerald, what do you think? Do you know where I live?
Yeah, $1 million at least.
Yeah, right? At least $1 million. Nothing. I can't move anywhere with that. Yeah. 2 million I would move. I don't know. I would ask Gerald to find me a lot. I would
Yeah, because then you don't have to pay the 7% instead of the sub 3%.
2.875 if we're gonna be accurate here. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, Yerushalayim Halabai. So the Gemara says this din, and we're actually going to spend the next Amud, which granted is not that long, but we're going to spend the next Amud discussing this idea that why? My time, why do we have to repeat a little Chazara line at the end of the shtar? And the Gemara gives the oddest answer. One that, again, this is one of the reasons why the Rishonim. Take a look at don't read the Tosfos, just look at the length of the Tosfos of Dibur Maseches Lefi She'ein Lemeden. Okay, it's very long. I didn't learn it, but I'm just saying it's long. These are sugyas. Amar of Amram, why is it that we have this idea that the last line of the shtar should be a summary line? Lefi She'ein Lemeden Mishita Achrona, because we don't learn from the last line. What in the world is the Gemara talking about? Says the Rashbam, we'll read the shorter Rishon. Says the Rashbam, shorter by 20-fold. Mipnei, Dibur Maskal Amar of Amram, Mipnei she'ein ha'edim yecholin l'karev chasimasan kol kach. We're not allowed to have the edim sign too close to the body of the shtar, besamuch, besof hashtar, because we're afraid that the ink might drip and cover the names of the edim and make it confusing. But we had to put something there to make sure that no one would be mezayef and no one would forge and add caveats into the shtar. And therefore what we do is we do write in that last line, but we write it in with information that's repetitive and nothing, no chidushim. That's why ein lemeidin mishita achrona, that line is not there for the sake of information exchange. That line is there simply as a filler to ensure that after the edim sign, a little bit below the main paragraph of information, Shalom al Yisrael, everything's going to be okay. We're going to make sure that it's kosher. We have to fill in the gaps a little bit. And Amar le Rav Nachman the Rav Amram minalach ha. He says Rav Amram, how do you know this idea that the last line is summative and it's only to prevent ziyuf and that space between the body of the shtar and the chasimas of the edim? Says the Gemara that Rav Amram responds, Amar le Tanya, we have a brisa. If there are 2 blank lines worth of space after the details of the shtar and before the chasimas of the edim, the shtar is puzzle. Because in those 2 lines, I could write one line that says, and text will give me $100,000. Right? What? No? No, you always got to pick who you're gonna. I don't know what your bank statements look like. I'm not asking, but you got to pick someone in the room. Maybe I should pick my dad. I don't know what's going on with his money either. It's fine. So it says the Gemara would be puzzle. So if between the body of the shtar and the chasimas there's 2 blank lines, puzzle. Shita achas kosher. If there's only 1 line, that is going to be kosher. Says the Gemara, Ma'ishna shnei shitin. Why is it that when there's two lines of space between the body of the star and the chasimas, Dilma Mizayif Vikasav, we're afraid that someone might write in a line that really shouldn't have been put there. I'm throwing in that you're going to agree to pay me X when it's not really true. Shita achas nami mizayif v'kosav. I should also be concerned about that. Says the Gemara. No, elolav shmami no ein lemeidim mishita achrona. We don't even learn from that last line. Even if they would write in something new, we don't accept new information. What we would put in that line is this information of, as the Gemara says at the bottom of Kuf Samach Aleph Amud Beis, that sheyachzer me'inyono shel shtar b'shita achrona shmami no. So that's the Gemara's conclusion. That brings us to the top of Kuf Samach Beis, Amud Beis, and we'll ask a question. We'll have two little smaller sugyas actually, and then we'll stop right at the bottom line. Ibaylahu. This is the most Jewish question ever. Shita umechza mai. You already told me that 2 is going to be puzzle and 1 is not going to be puzzle. Well, what if it's 1.5? That's a beautiful idea, beautiful question, I should say. Toshma, let's see. Here, chikesa edim shnei shitin puzzle. What's the diuk from that part of the Mishnah? Hashita umechza kasher, because you said 2 was the limit, the threshold by which we would establish puzzle. So therefore, anything less should be kosher. Says the Gemara. Well, that's adorable, but it doesn't work because ema seifa shita achas kasher. What does that imply? Shita achas hu de kasher. Hashita umechza puzzle. So we have opposite mashmos from our Mishnah, which is of course problematic, and therefore, classically, like we see throughout Shas, I'm surprised that the Gemara actually, that the Mesoras Hashas actually added a Mari Makom here. Ela meha leika lemishma. He quotes here Brachos Daf Chafei. We've seen this 50 times in Shas. That when you see a Mishnah that
which is, I don't know, shar something, meaning and others. That's probably the first time. And others, because you are.
What does Shin Nun stand for?
It's I don't remember.
I thought the Shin Nun was the Shinui Nuschos or something, that there's different versions.
Sure.
But this is not different.
I'm not even sure you could count that.
At least 50. More, at least. Yeah, it's got to be more. That's a great trivia. I'm sure the Vilna Gaon would be like, it's a gematria based on the word leka. That's what he did in Sukkah, the famous board of the Gra in Sukkah. Sukkah without a vav is how many cases were kosher, and Sukkah with a vav is whatever the... It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay. Anyways, the Gemara says we want to figure out whether or not a 1.5 of space between the shtar and the chasima is kosher. We don't know because from here, leika lemishmamina. My habe alolamaisa. How do we paskin in regards to a 1.5? So it says the Gemara Tashma, 6 lines down, halfway down, Kuf Samach Beis Amud Beis, the Tanya. We have a brisa from Maseches Gittin. It's actually a Tosafta. Pachos mikan kosher. That's a mic drop. This is super clear. We don't have anything to worry about. Our Mishnah couldn't have been a Mari Makom because the implications were inverted. But the brisa, the Tosafta and Maseches Gittin is super clear. A 1.5 of ksav is kosher. You just can't have 2 full lines. Lemaisa, what does that mean? That if I have even 1 word on the next line, such that there aren't 2 full blank lines, that is considered to be a kosher document. Let's say that I'm a thorough guy and I have every single one of you in this room signing on a shtar. And we find out that one of the 4 or 5 is puzzle. Shockingly, at least to me, tiskayim edus b'sha'ar. Now this to me is surprising because we know the general rule, a little either Rasha either Shcheno, that I think the Mishnah says this maybe in Sanhedrin somewhere, that if you're an aid with someone who's puzzled, then you're puzzled. So I've had these scenarios that I've shared before where I was called up to be an aid kedushin with someone who was like a shtickle. I didn't know. I didn't even know what to do. I did the aidus. But the guy I was with, I wasn't sure if he was Shomer Shabbos. I thought he was because he grew up in a Torah home. I just wasn't sure on my own.
Wedding or whatever it was.
It would have meant, technically the kedushin might not have been chal. But the couple is still married, Ladina, because later when the couple is together, we have a principle in halacha that we don't assume that there was be'ilas znus. So if they go into yichud together and they have kosher edim there, so perhaps that's a chalos because they could have had time. We don't recommend that, but the length of time for yichud is the length of time to cohabit. That's how the poskim established that amount of time. I think it's like 9 minutes or something to disrobe, have tashma shemita, and get dressed again, whatever the svara is. So there, l'chora, that would be enough to make them be married. And even couples who never have a valid kedushin, we still assume that they are married because eina the mosa be'ilas or be'ilas znus, we still assume. Right, gam.
Which is the Gemara way of saying common law marriage. They act like a married couple, we assume them to be so.
Right.
But then would she be an Ashish?
And Mamzera's
The only
issues
question is, would you have cool on the other side?
to be Ma'akir Kedushin the Mafreya. Right, that's a good shiloh. That's a good shiloh. But it's a little bit of a stira to the svara of hein ede yichud hein ede bia. It's very hard to talk out of both sides of your mouth. Yeah, no, that's for the greats. That's for the people who are. And the Gemara has this in a few places also, that when someone does Kedushin perfectly, but it wasn't done Kedas Moshe Yisrael. We had a case earlier, I think in this Masechta, where if you hang someone on a hook and say, Harad Mekudeshes li b'tnai, then I'll let you down. So that's not Kedas Moshe Yisrael. And then we are Ma'akir Kedushin l'mafrei. We do uproot. That's not a real Kedushin. It's not, even if they have Tashma Shemitah, it's not a real Kedushin. What about the Tashma Shemitah? The Gemara asked that question. So these are all like very, very complicated shilas that unfortunately come up in the secular chevra all the time. How many people have a frum wedding? Rav Moshe Feinstein writes that if you do a double ring ceremony, it's a kasha on him giving her a ring. Because if you're equating him giving her a ring with her giving him a ring, one's Kedushin and one's not. So the double ring ceremonies can, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, raises some significant issues. A lot of people who do wear rings just take the ring afterwards. I actually have one. I don't think I've ever put it on because my knuckles are very fat, and I put it on once to try it on, and I almost couldn't get it off in the store, and I have no idea where it is. Anyways, says the Gemara, Misayeya le lechizkiya. What?
Fun fact for our trivia game.
The bingo card for Daf Yomi. How many of us have gone swimming on Shabbos? What does progeny mean?
They still have a ring.
They still have a ring, yeah. The question should be, did Phil do a double ring ceremony? Rabbi Matenki was our Masada Kedushin. He would never have such a thing. I did not. This idea that if there are more than two signatories and one of them comes out to be a karav or a puzzle, that whatever was going on, that the Edom were testifying to, that it's still kosher, this supports the sheet of Chizkiah. And with this, we're going to close. The Amar Chizkiah, Miluhu bekrovim kosher. Let's say that a person just filled in the blanks with his family member's name. So I have aid number one, David Merzel's a kosher aid, Tex Weissman's a kosher aid. And then after that, I write my father's name, I write my brother's name, I write apostle's name. Says the Gemara, if you fill in the gaps, bekrovim, it's still kosher. And then the Gemara says brilliantly, the Altatama, I don't want you to say that it would have just been better if it was blank. I don't want you to say that. Shahare, and listen to this, beautiful. Avir sukkah posel b'shlosha. If we have, and this comes up a lot, if we have schach that's more than 3 tfachim from the wall, it's no longer a wall. So this comes up a lot. My brother-in-law once came up, I guess the wind had blown the sukkah, the schach a little bit. He's like, yo, you got to move over the schach or you don't have a wall. These are real shilas. This comes up. This is a very common error, that if the schach is not within 3 tfachim, which is maybe a foot, it's not that much. So then you have real problems. Yet schach pasel posel be'arba. Oh, when the schach is not kosher, it only ruins in 4 tfachim. So what do we see? Pasel schach is more lenient than no schach, which is a little bit of a chiddush. But that's what the Gemara is making as an equation over here to the din of Chizkiah, to the din of the Gemara, that says that if there are extra signatures beyond 2, that even though they're karv or puzzle, tiskaim edus b'sha'ar, whatever the edus was being given for is still valid. We'll stop right here. Emir Tashem tomorrow. We'll pick up on the bottom line of Kuf Samach Beis and pick up a blot and a half. I will be here for Shabbos. After that, I'm gone for like 10 days, 9 days, something like that. Ruvain Handler is on the case. Wishing you all a beautiful night.